And Dr. John Van de is very strategic. So first, invited a great number of the young, energetic researchers to try to present their research and to figure out research ideas. And then he is organizing some inviting the senior professors to share their successful experience, for example, to write large research proposals. And hopefully we can help, by doing this, we can facilitate our NADRI members to get large grants. So from another perspective, Dr. Laurie Peak has been creating opportunities for our NADRI members to meet NICEF program directors on different occasions. For example, last year in the National Hazard Center workshop, he invited the NICEF program managers from 4 programs. So one is from humans and disasters and multi-environment. And another one is disaster reduction risk grant, and another one and the policy advocacy committee is even more aggressive. So they are writing advocacy letters to different agencies. So they to urge them to increase the budget for hazards and disaster research. So if the funding pie is bigger, our member will get a better chance to get research funding, to get a higher amount of research funding. So currently, we've already sent a letter to National Institute of Health, NOAA, National Science Foundation, U.S. Geological Survey, and also with the coordination of Dr. Kovacs, we wrote the letter to the 3 Canadian agencies, Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, National Sciences and Engineering Research Council, and Policy and Outreach for Public Safety. So another committee is Member Relationship Committee. So we meet every 2 months. So we call that meet and greet, and also we do annual meeting, and the upcoming one will be in person in July. We also issue some awards to dedicated members. We call that NADRI Engagement Award. The most important thing, as I mentioned, we try to innovatively disseminate our research findings to the communities, and our initiative is 100 resilience stories. We got this idea from Dr. Kovacs, and each story shouldn't be too long, should be limited to 1,000 words. We should tell the audience what science we are delivering, and what is the societal problem, what is the hazard, what approach we propose, and what is the outcome, whether the approach is effective or not. And at the last paragraph, we need the remarks from the community. And I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Kovacs, to share the first resilience story.
Okay, so time is already up.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your introduction about North American Alliance.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. GADRI members look forward to work with GADRI and all other alliance for achieve the mission of disaster risk reduction and to better the living of the whole world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, so now I'd like to invite Professor Desmond Manatsa to present for the African Alliance for Disaster Research Institutes, for which he is president. He's also the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering at Bindura University of Science of Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. what we are for and what we have achieved so far. GADRI is Africa's disaster research community. But the rationale why we formed GADRI was because Africa's disaster research community is fragmented and diverse. No clear collaboration and partnership in informed decision making in Africa. Africa's disaster research output is less than 1% of global disaster, and no hub of Africa's disaster research. The forum is for advancing disaster risk reduction knowledge through producing knowledge, sharing knowledge, promoting collaboration and partnership, provide unified message for policy makers across Africa. The membership of organization, we have 10 from 4 countries, Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, quite recently Ghana, and South Africa. Government organizations that constitute GADRI, 5 from 3 countries, and NGOs, 2 from 1 country. Private sector, we've been lobbying for private sector, but so far we haven't had any headway. And PhD students, we've got 6 from 1 country. GADRI is an independent alliance that is managed by voluntary contributions from the African research community. This secretariat is hosted by the School of Climate Change and Disaster Research at the University where I am. And the committee is rotating, though the secretariat is based at the University. The main themes of GADRI are disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and sustainable development. Now, collaboration in research. Just talk of the recent collaboration that we've had, which we had breakthrough. Is the collaboration that we have had with one of the members, the Zimbabwe National Geospatial Space Agency, which is collaborated with the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency and Kyushu Institute of Technology in Japan, and they were able to launch a satellite into space, which will help to collect data in wanted disasters, boost agriculture and enhance mineral mapping. It's one of the latest collaboration that we've had with Japan. And also we've got currently we've got one PhD student who is here at Kyoto University. He's a PhD student in the 3rd year. So these are some of the collaborations that we've come up with, that we've developed as GADRI. But we still need some other collaborations with other institutions. But now we've got a small challenge of resources which we are trying to overcome, and we're trying to get GADRI out of membership, out of Zimbabwe. Some of the projects also out of Zimbabwe has been a problem. So we've devised a method whereby we are going to have the first, we have not had a conference because of lack of resources. We tried online sometime, but it was poorly attended. But now we are busy negotiating or consulting with the SADC humanitarian organization center in Mozambique, where we are going to hold our first stands for 14 countries. So one to leverage on the 14 countries that are under the species of SADC, so that maybe we can expand our membership as well as funding for ADRI. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? So I have a question. I noticed, sorry, that you talked about how you're going to move out of Zimbabwe and a broader engagement with the continent. So could you just maybe highlight how you will be expanding your activities, hopefully?
Yeah, sure. The Secretariat will remain in Zimbabwe, but the challenge with other members we are going to do the countries that are going to attend the conference in Mozambique. Also, if you realize that if you do it in Zimbabwe, it will become like the Zimbabwe-centric. More of the chairmanship in all those other committee members are from Zimbabwe. And to bypass that dominance, they are now going to operate from another country, which is Mozambique. And Mozambique of late has been very, very active in disaster issues. So we're thinking that if we do the conference there, we will get the funding and we will get more membership. There are so many conferences in disaster which are taking place these days in Mozambique.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. In Japan, we have supporting international cooperation project, so-called SATREPS, which is supported by JICA and JSD. And we are implementing some African projects now in Ethiopia and in some other countries. However, we are also calling for more research activities from Africa. So please look for Japanese professors to jointly organize such international collaboration project under SATREPS project. Thank you. This is just for your information.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll come to you for more information on that.
Thank you very much. Next is from South Asia Alliance, MAF, Mukashi, who is from IIT Roorkee, India. Mafa used to be a visiting professor of TPRI Kyoto University. Mafa, you have only 7 minutes, okay?
Yeah, very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Professor Takara, thanks Peter and Professor Takano, because for him only, gladly this time I'm attending it. I'm very thankful for persuading me. Today I would like to discuss something about GADRI, South Asia Alliance, which is very new. Only in the last 4th summit, that is summit, we got the in the region, we should not have our own balance. So probably from that we started, but we have its own gestation period even to start. So in 2021, we actually started just a very brief intro about our region. I know all of you know South Asia region is the most disaster-prone area of the globe. So it really makes sense that if we are having so much of commonality, whether it is geophysical, most of the countries here are either shared by the Himalaya or the sea. Common aspirations, these countries are really not very new economy we can tell about, transform the regions. So if there is something happening in the south, it is not only coming there, it is going to have the cascading impact on the neighboring countries as well. And the parliamentary governance is there in all these countries. And whenever you look at any district report, you can always see how the South Asia region is being identified as the most So I need not really elaborate that. So what we had done initially when we came together and we started understanding, if you keep on understanding the challenges, then it's very difficult to go on. So we started with our strengths, that's the disaster research institutes. Lot of good talents are there who are working, even including the young professionals. So what we had tried to do from the beginning, we had our own charter, SADRI charter. I'm very thankful Professor Tatano actually inaugurated our website way back in 2021. And we are having 5 member countries and we are having also few more other countries, not that all countries are shown here. So right now we are having 11 plus country members and we try to understand, try to figure out how best we can come together. Everyone is busy. So we initially started with 5 working groups so that we can have a focus among the members. So our first 2 working groups, they work on the geotech issues and the hydromet issues. And it's an early warning that was from the very beginning that was decided because it should be the people implementation side. The third working group looks at the critical infrastructure, 4th one participatory community resilience, and the 5th one is the nature-based resilience. And our 6th one has come up very recently as the request came from the members that climate change impact on environment and health. In the last BOD meeting, it was being ratified and accepted. In addition to that, we are also having SADRI Young Platform, Professionals Platform. I will be able to talk about it in another slide. And very recently, we have started our first SADRI newsletter. We actually had this particular first issue on the day of International Mother Language Day, because we believe if we can really disseminate information on with our vernacular language, it will be more it will be reaching the people more easily. I will be discussing some of our initiatives. Other than that, also I would like to mention that we always have a very good set of experts, advisor to our SADRI board, and like Tsung-Yi is here, Rajiv is here, Gretchen is here. We continuously get so many good suggestions from them, and that really keeps us motivated and all. Definitely, I have to also accept the type of activity proposals we get from our members as well. Rajiv was delivered our first SADRI lecture. We have to also catch up in that. So what I would like to share with you people here, because it's already Pakala said 7 minutes, so maybe I have to be very brief. We try to look at how best we can bring the synergy between the SDGs, SFDR targets, and the climate change. So accordingly, our working group will work. But here I would like to bring some 5 different pillars. Under those pillars, I will be discussing what we are trying to do. Like first one is the knowledge sharing from our platform. We try to make it was online primarily, but some offline activities also started. Again, we have limitations, but we are also trying to get people from these 5 member countries as much as possible. So we had that forcing workshop. We had the critical writing workshop for the young researchers, and it was such a successful one. Again, credit goes to Rajiv, I will say. We got so good, I will say, motivators who came here and we believe that we can do this particular workshop again and again. Disaster Management Action Frontiers. In this particular workshop, training workshop for the professionals, we could bring also the people, participants from Nepal. So,
for 1 minute.
Okay. So, like that, planet brings prosperity. In that, we have tried to understand how the nature-based resilience will have publication both for critical infrastructure and this nature-based one. We have the DRL awareness and education. This is something which has come up it's a very small state, but we are really hopeful it will be a very strong state and significant state towards community. Because the young professionals are coming and trying to train the community people, school-age children are our target. And we have already done one such and we hope to repeat it again. done some investment-related research activity as well as our project. This has come up, and these are the partnership. Yeah, definitely. Partnership is the starting point of GADRI, and it is going to be the mainstay. And we take part in many such activities, during curfew talk as well. I should just give one small reminder to this that GADRI 2023 is going to be held at my institute, IIT Roorkee, and GADRI probably will have that opportunity to go for at least a good side event. Barriers and opportunities, as all of us, we do understand that there will be barriers again, but what we understand that we are not really having been able to catch up with every field where we should be. Gender is one such issue where we would like to really work on, but early warning system, Wesson Lee and IIT Roorkee is going to work on it. Next month we are going to have that particular training session. Again, we are expecting other surveillance. Like that, we have also tried to, that will also go for the data collection part. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any short questions, comments?
Yes, I mean, very interesting, huge range of activity. Just wanted to pick up on the early warning, which I saw you were looking at last year. How is that work continuing across your organisation?
At least 3 of our member countries are already having their own early warning system, but the issue is they are not multi-hazards. So what we are trying to do with the Lee vessel, that is to start with at least 2 different, hydromet and the geotech together, but it will not be multi-country initially. Initially it will start with Uttarakhand, Himalayan region, and then it will go with
Thanks very much indeed. Right. I'd like to invite Professor Andrew Collins of the UK Alliance for Disaster Research, and he is also leader of Disaster Development Network at Northumbria University.
Thanks, Peter. And I'm glad you introduced me as of the UK ADI. The programme is as a co-chair. I'm not that, I'm actually an advisor to the UK ADI now. We have a rotational system, and the current co-chair is going to be here, otherwise they would be delivering this. And that's just the first thing I want to say is what we are. We're set up like that. So we have a steering committee, and the steering committee has basically elected 2 chairs. They are Suzanne Sargent of the British Geological Survey and Amy Donovan of the University of Cambridge. So I'm sure you'll probably see them at the next one of these events. We have an advisory board that's currently myself and Mark Pelling, who a lot of people also know, and a total of 15 steering committee members. And in the room we have, I think, about 4. So there's Virginia Murray over there, and there's Peter Summons as part of the steering committee, David Alexander, and Mark Parry, who's going to take the last couple of minutes of this slot. Okay, and there's also probably, if you see any UK delegates in the event, and I know there are a few, their institutions will be members, or indeed the individual will be a member. So it's quite widespread in the UK now. So you can go to the website and you'll see pictures of those people. I was going to go there, but we're really chasing time a bit, so you can do that yourself. I invite you to have a look at the website and you'll see profiles of the various individuals involved. So there's a bit of background, of course, and the Sendai framework was key to this, so another credit to the Sendai framework that stimulated these things to come together and happen. And we started out with the focus you see in points 1 to 4. They're very much about alliance building, forming a link with government and from government, so that we have a coordinated unit in the UK. There's about 24 institutional members currently, and over 300 individual members. I think that may have risen a bit since this slide was last updated with that. I don't have the exact number. I think it's just a little bit more than that now. And of course, we wish to maintain all our join. But why we need UK ADR, so this is very now up to date and current, we're sort of reviewing things all the time as we go. It's only since 2016 this has existed. So we're sticking with the support UK government commitments to the Sendai framework aspect of this. We want to enable smart, rapid response to international emergencies through knowledge. Power is knowledge and effectiveness in the response to whatever's going on in the day. So we're a point of contact that way. Inform the wider international development and disaster risk reduction process. And then you can see the second one there is respond to the needs of the UK research community. So it's to be helpful for those people who work in this area, many of whom have been quite isolated in the past. Also to avoid institutional competition. So as the subject area has grown and grown, there's a few of us working in this area, now there's many. So we think it's better to bring people together rather than be sort of potentially competing rather than collaborating. And of course, new partnerships have become easier with this type of forum and the global links again mentioned there. So this is what we've achieved. This the strategic working through the elected UK ADR committee and advisory board. I don't think we can underestimate these organisational aspects. They're really important what these alliances are all about. And then we get into the core business as you go down the rest of the bullets there. So we reviewed our constitution last year. We've had a lot of close links with government research councils, and we also we directly sit on the government representation in this area, which is represented by the Disasters Research Group. Now that's mainly government bodies, but the UK ADR has a seat on that as well, which is very significant in the context of this subject area. So we have an influence on policy. There's some further examples there. COP26 in Glasgow was quite significant for us. We made an input there, and so forth. The STAG, or let's call it the UNERR link, but also regional STAGs, and of course it's the E-STAG in the case of this one. Okay, so, and the Early Career Research Network is a new development. Ashley's going to take a minute at the end just to say that. So we have an annual conference that's become a key part of the UK ADR now. This is the spread of the conferences. There's been one every year. Well, one missing, but then we made up for that with two things going on one year. So you can see the institutions that have hosted those, and plenty more institutions are queuing up now to host it in the future. So this is very much alive and well. Now, I won't go through all the list of bullets there, but they're there for future reference. Just to say in summary that we have got priority areas. We've done a bit of work on this, survey and so forth, and discussion and contemplation, and decided that we really will continue to work with understanding risk. There's so much more to do on that. The second one, disaster science methodology, has risen to the ascendancy very much within this community in the UK, I'm sure elsewhere as well. Okay, there's a list of some of the examples of what that includes. And thirdly, this is one, last but not least at all, the mechanisms of investment in research governance. It's a topic in itself for research, but of course this is also about, if you like, the how the UK ADR interacts itself with the systems of governance that are their funding bodies and so forth. And the big problem of not enough investment. So that's actually just finish off. This has been a key feature of the last year.
Yeah, sure. So basically the network was a result of very much persuasive and continuous effort that we discussed this for about 5 years since the first conference in 2017. But with the backdrop of COVID-19, it gave us an opportunity to actually bring young scientists together for the first time. So by 2021, we had 3 representatives, we're showing down here, we came together and decided how we were going to do this, and they're on the Zoom group with all the other members. And by March 2022, we actually had our first meeting. Now all of these happen in 2 months, and what we do is we do this in a virtual format. And the overarching objectives of the network are to allow the network of other colleagues, which is obviously important, who are at very similar stages of research, who are all these early career researchers, who have a tendency to feel isolated in their own institutions when they do their research. It actually allows them to come together, and it allows cross-institutional engagement. For develop the next generation of researchers. And it allows them also to develop potential joint grant initiatives. So the idea is that leading researchers and government institutions can actually put together a model of research grants, which is important for us. So we have over 30 members currently, and a database of people so they can find out who's working with who. And we actually don't work in as a local work with other networks, including the network of early career researchers and entities in disaster studies that are based out of Cambridge University. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. It's really good to see an early career network starting like that. So I think we should probably move on to the final speaker now.
Okay, may I invite the final speaker, Dr. Yuichi Ono from the University of Tohoku University. He will introduce something about the Third World Bonsai Forum.
Thank you, Professor Takara. I thank GADRI, Paul, and Tadano-sensei and others to this GADRI meeting and World Bonsai Forum in very close back. So our meeting, World Bonsai Forum, is Bonsai means disaster discussion in Japanese. And we talked about, this is a meeting not only with the scientists interacting with government representatives, NGOs, private sector, many kinds of people. And there was 32 countries representatives joined, and more than 5,000 people gathered in Sendai in 10th to 12th of March, so last week. Then we talked about many things, the 90-minute session, I think 30 of the 90-minute sessions, expo and so on. Then today I'm going to introduce the outcomes of this World Bonsai Forum meeting in Sendai. But before that, in December last year, because Bonsai Forum and Global Risk Forum in that order, we have a relationship, and we support the Global Risk Forum in Switzerland, Davos, Switzerland, for their meeting. Then they will support us, so vice versa, every other year. But due to the COVID, we couldn't have the meeting for many years. But the Global Risk Forum organized a very short, small meeting. About 30 people showed up. Then we talked about recommendation for the midterm review. Then that is called the scientist Switzerland, scientist recommendation. Then followed by this World Bonsai Forum's recommendation. So I get into the contents, and I will, let's see how I can read first. Then if time comes up, I'll shut up. So, okay, so this is the, so we have 20 points, the recommendations. Then the first, our recommendation is more overall. Then goes to the Sendai frameworks 1, 2, 3, 4. Then at the end, overarching or emerging recommendations points. So the first one, the forum recognizes the high value of the Sendai framework of disaster discussion and the needs to accelerate its implementation. We respect the importance of the role of the United Nations Office for Disaster Discussion for that goal. Ultimately, promotion and review of the Sendai framework must lead to the practice of disaster discussion in each country and to strengthen national and local mechanisms to implement disaster discussion. These include strengthening of the national platforms of disaster discussion and secretariat, in many cases NDMOs. Then priority 1, the second. We need sound and reliable evidence based on data collection and analysis. So we're talking about data thing, including risk assessment to further enhance the connection between risk information and DRR decisions and actions. Third one, to enhance credibility, we must fully utilize and refer to historical disaster loss and damage data. Again, loss and damage data statistics. We need to improve accuracy in the calculation of economic losses, including those of infrastructures. 4, we need consistent and understandable metrics regarding disaster discussion and building resilience. How resilient is resilient enough? There must be substantial discussion among the relevant stakeholders within and across countries. 5, The Sendai monitoring should be done not only by national government, but also local governments, including municipalities, to understand disaster risk assessment at the local level. For this, the Sendai city made a midterm review, and Tohoku University helped their city-wide midterm review for Sendai. The second, priority 2, 6. We need more robust education program for securing skilled human resources dedicated to disaster risk assessment. More transdisciplinary practical programs should be inaugurated to formulate an optimized set of DRR actions based on scientific evidence. 7. We must strengthen the national platform disaster risk assessment. We mentioned that a little bit, but coordination with the national organizations and invest in disaster risk assessment such as Ministry of Public Works, Construction, Planning, and Finance. In the Sendai framework's contact point is the National Disaster Management Authority or office, but they are not necessarily building infrastructure, building their infrastructure. So their role is important. And who fund the NDMOs? The Ministry of Finance. We have to convince the importance of DRR to the Ministry of Finance, otherwise they cannot get money. 8. We must stress the importance of balance between structural and non-structural measures to reduce disaster risk. An optimal combination of disaster risk action measures is needed to maximize the effectiveness of disaster risk reduction by various stakeholders with limited resources. The disaster risk action effectiveness matrix need to be established for this purpose. 9. We encourage further involvement of the private sector in disaster risk action. Private sector involvement will be more effective if there is a national strategy and budget for disaster risk action at the local level. 10. Specific actions, including tangible, measurable, visible, mappable, GIS-based actions, etc., are needed at the local level. The global level agenda should be for local level actions. Since all disasters affect the local level activities, activities must be action-oriented. Then maybe rest of that I think I will need it, but within last 1 minute, we had a conversation, especially here we have Professor Nagami from Tohoku University and many other colleagues. We discussed the early warning system importance. The UN Secretary General Guterres mentioned last year, just in March last year, to call for early warning system to cover the entire world in a certain time period. But this early warning system is very, very effective. I have worked on early warning system in my last 5 years. But early warning system can save lives, but early warning system cannot save property, livelihood. So this is very important point. So the approach maybe we should take in the future is maybe we might need to categorize the countries depending on the development of the country status, like rich countries or middle-income countries in India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Mexico, and so middle-income. Then LDCs and the cities. So I think the early warning system is very effective for certain countries. Maybe some other measures are good for certain countries. I think DRR recipe should be different. It's in the UN documents all in one, so that may be needed, tailored sort of resource mobilization that may be needed for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? As you know, BOSAI stands for Disaster Prevention and Mitigation. So here DBRI is BOSAI Research Issues, actually. Any questions? Peter, do you have any?
No, I just think I'm very interested to see your summary and how you're addressing the framework, Sendai framework. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank many of you who came to Sendai for BOSAI Forum. And thank you very much.
So I'd just like to thank all the speakers of the session. And we've had a gallop around most of the globe in an hour. Do, of course, find your colleagues in coffee afterwards who have follow-up questions. There's further information in the accompanying GADRI booklet as well. So there's now going to be a coffee break. But what we'll do after the coffee break, 3:30, we've got the panel discussion sessions. So please look in the back of this guide here. There's a 3D schematic of where you need to find the room that you'll be in. So thank you very much.
you very much for the great time control. Yes, as already announced, the time for coffee break. The coffee is available on the hybrid level on the second floor. And so we will have a panel discussion session from 3:30. And this is an announcement that please go to the, there are 3 rooms actually, as shown here. And the way to go to each room is different, room by room. It's complicated. For room 1A, in the seminar room 4 and 5, assistant will be waiting for you to take you to the each session room. And get together around the reception desk at 3:20. So it's not so much time for coffee break. Sorry for that. Or you can go directly to each session room by using the map in the conference program. So you can find the map on the brochure. And if you do not find a way, maybe you can ask some staff in the And then this is the final announcement. And we will have a welcome reception from 5:30 at the hybrid space. So please come together at the hybrid space at 5:30. With a voucher, you can find the voucher in your name tag, so please find it. So enjoy your coffee. Yes, and then if you want to go to the room, get together, please wait around the reception desk at 3:20. Thank you very much.
Okay, I just test you.
Okay.
Right? You're too far in this place. You don't need Wi-Fi.
Okay. So it should be Bill Ho first.
Bill Ho first.
You're saying texting Bill? Okay. Because after the Indonesian rector speaks,
So Bill first.
Bill Ho,
Okay.
and then introduced by you, and then
So I.
Elsa introduced by Debbie. Elsa is here? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. My mic is having.
I'm not available.
Okay, Greta, you, both of you, when you're speaking, you need to use the mic, otherwise they can't hear you. Okay, I'll be very lucky. I did, Ma. Okay, after. Elsa is not here. Elsa. She's late, so we'll put her
Okay.
last.
All right.
Okay, so
Anika is there.
Bill Ho, Makwada will be after.
Makwada is there.
Bill Ho. So you're going to introduce Makwada. Okay. And you're going to just introduce the session with a few words.
Yes, at the very beginning, then I will pass the microphone to you.
Yeah.
To introduce the.
And then you're going to, then it'll be Dimitri.
Dimitri will be number
3.
3.
Dimitri hasn't acknowledged at all whether he received my message or not.
He is man of IT.
Okay, then after him, hopefully Elsa will have shown up. Well, after Dimitri, we can go back to Krishna, the replacement on the panel for the rector. Krishna. So we don't go. Do you know who took by coincidence this guy
who's helping the director with her speech, and he's going to place her on the panel. Oh, he spent 5 months at GADRI, and he was actually here for the first GADRI planning meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, he knows Tatano well.
Did not know that. What
You
was
say he
it?
has some connection issues, but
If you're right, I want
Bill.
your name.
yeah.
Well, Professor Wilson Lee and Director. This is Lubna, the lady I was trying to promote from UKM. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Lubna.
Yes.
So that is Professor Wilson College and it's also Wilson Lee.
I know him very
Very
well.
well. You know him very well. Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm Desmond Malak.
And then Professor Desmond Manasa. He's the director for Africa.
I saw the presentation.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you.
Seeing you around.
Representation already.
So I already passed message to the leader and the bill.
Okay,
They all online. They all respond to me.
okay.
The
But we don't see them.
media told me in maybe 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, okay.
And Bill have some connection issues,
Okay.
but I don't know what.
All right, as long as you are in touch with them, then they are fine.
Well, so far it looks like we have a very small group, so
We'll try to bring more
we'll
people.
try and be
Yeah,
live.
please take front seat. Take business class seat.
Business class.
Don't sit in the
First
economic
class.
class.
First class, okay.
You can have first class.
And you have decided who's going to present the proceedings of today's meeting?
Sure.
Shibo. Well, Shibo. He does it all the time.
He runs away?
He went away. I want to tell Shibo to give it to another participant.
I'm sure we'll be back.
Well, why Bisan and them are not attending this session?
Because the competition is fierce.
Okay.
The other 2 sessions are people's top priorities, like the S&P roadmap, and what was the other one? What was science related one?
Okay, networking.
Oh, Charlie's one.
Okay. You finished your role. So you are welcome.
I have a lot of strong African values.
Yes, yes, you told me.
Yeah, right.
Told me,
right.
told me.
Yeah.
Great children, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. My ex and late husband, Colombia, from Congo.
Okay.
And so I lived in Kenya for 7 years. And I worked in Tanzania. I have 2 adopted South African sons, one in Cape Town and one in Seattle.
Sorry, you are
So the one in South Africa is so actually, I hope the intended part place. It's not really that I know. It really really
can just bring more hours. It's great to follow listening to the
I mean, it's heartbreaking to say the truth.
Chiefs. He might be supposed to is it a case with I don't understand. Only one.
One fiction. I find it a little constantly. Almost every day, new stuff from outrageous things happening with the corruption and the police.
Hey, Bill.
Is Bill there?
Yes. Hey, Bill, can you hear us? You should unmute yourself first. Hello? Hello?
Oh, I see Rector Rainey. Hello, Rector Rainey. Hi.
Hello?
We're so honored to have you with us. And then the image behind you is so beautiful. So excited.
Hopefully. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
We are very proud of that very old observatory.
Yeah, 1923. 1923.
Yes. 100 years and still functioning and going strong.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you do have a beautiful campus in general.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
I think we're going to wait 5 minutes because we're still having some people come in, and we're also waiting for now for Dimitri and Elsa, or only Elsa.
And Dimitri.
Dimitri. Mizan is here. Here's one of your distinguished alumni. Mizan Dimitri is here.
I don't know whether
You can hear me. Still functions.
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
Hello, from Quara. From Quara. Hello, good morning. How are you?
Matsura-san.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We're okay. Yeah. Here it's actually it's towards the end of the day.
Where are you physically located? Where is he now? South Africa, where?
Okay.
No, that's fine. You're audible. Are we audible from this side?
Yes,
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
We have another participant. I'm her big fan.
First class.
Oh my God.
Not allowing mothers to go to business class anymore. First class, okay. Okay, all right.
I thought you'd come back.
it's like a tropical summer.
That is nice. Because it's going to get colder now.
You're going to share with us?
Oh, yes. We will start.
Please. We want to put them in our magazines.
Really nice if there was a bigger audience. We just Photoshop in some people.
We need some background.
Yes.
AI.
We can take the photo from the morning session.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people.
Put in front of the camera.
Oh, I'm anxious to get started, but I guess we can wait 3 minutes.
Ready?
And that's Dimitri again.
Okay.
So you know him well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, something.
He's Bulgarian.
Before the coding, he holds kind of ICT for design with name. Or almost.
Gretchen Kalanji. He's Professor Masato Kobayama from Brazil.
Brazil?
Yes.
Sugoi! We have a Brazilian representative.
Yes. Japanese, but he's been there for the past 3 decades, so he's not Brazilian. And then he recently, come all the way from Brazil. Yeah, isn't it?
Women forgotten our age. From here, excuse me, Wednesday.
What the ice picture?
I'm a witness. there's the problems.
The 1B is somewhere else. This is 1A. They are going to 1A.
Oh,
Not working. Oh, Ingrid, you're there. You're there.
More people. It's fine.
It's fine. I think I just have to meet the. You can
Log in whenever he goes up.
Dr. Sensei is here. Dr. Sensei, you met Professor Tsung-Yi? No, right?
we know each other. Uma, we well know each other.
Okay, so you and Subo.
Okay, so it's
Dear participants. Okay. Dear participants and all online panelists, welcome to join the panel discussion 1-C, a meeting on the institutional capacity building. I'm the chair. Today I'm honored to have another co-chair to host this section. The first co-chair is Professor Desmond.
Can I get on first?
Executive Dean, Faculty of Science and Engineering. The second co-chair is Professor Glomji, Institution for Disaster Management and Reconstruction, Sichuan University, China. About organization of today's section. Later, we are honored to have a keynote speech and 5 panel discussion. Later, we'll have some conclusion. The main purpose of this section, we know there are a lot of institutions under GADRI, but each institution has their own plan about institutional capacity building. We hope through the panel discussion and keynote speech, we can find some way that we can integrate power and resources under GADRI. First, I would like to pass the microphone to Granger to introduce our honorable keynote speaker today.
Thank you, Assembly. So I also welcome you, ladies and gentlemen. It's delightful to see all your faces there, and I hope we'll have a lively discussion. It's my great honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Professor Remy Uberahadi Kusuma. I hope that's not too much of a butchering of the pronunciation of your name. Professor Remy specializes in construction, engineering, and management. She's a professor at the Institute of Technology in Bandung, Indonesia. But she also happens to be the first female rector in the history of that very prestigious university. So we're delighted and honored to have you with us, Professor Remy. So her personal research focuses mostly on infrastructure, project, supply chain management, and construction management, obviously very related to disasters in general. Her degrees are all in civil engineering from ITB in Indonesia and master's and PhD from Purdue University in the U.S. She's a recipient of too many honors and awards for me to list now, but not only in Indonesia, but also worldwide. And at ITB, she's been spearheading, elevating the strategic profile of disasters within the Institute, and she will talk to us about that. She also plays many national leadership roles within Indonesia in professional societies and in governmental policy. So, Rector Remy, are you ready to?
Yes, thank you. Okay, please, do Emma share our PowerPoint? Okay, so hello everyone, hello esteemed colleagues, participants, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Professors Wei Senli,
Professor Desmond Matatsa, of course, Gretchen Kalonji, Professor Samadar, Takemi Kawaike, and our panelists. With us, ITB will be assisted by Professor Krishna Pribadi. Most of you probably already know him. Our other panelists, Dr. Julho, Ms. Holloway, Mukwadar, and Dr. Barrett. With us also, I would like to say hello to Rahma, to Dr. Rahma Hanifa from GRIN, our alumni, and also our alumni who is an assistant professor in Japan, in Kobe, Bapak Mizan Misri, hello. But first of all, on behalf of Institut Teknologi Bandung, I would like to thank Professor Hirokazu Tatano, the Secretary General of GADRI. Thank you. It is an honor for us to be invited to speak in this event, very, very strategic event. So the Global Summit is of primary essential, very strategic platform and opportunities for us all, researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and other stakeholders, both in the government and non-government institutions. We very much realize, understand our strategic role in campuses, university. We are expected to provide key role in disaster risk reduction. Of course, through our daily activities, through science, research, technology. So therefore, we have to build our capacity, so institutional capacity building work, disaster risk reduction in each campus is of essential agenda. First, I would like to talk briefly about our context, Indonesian challenges, and our condition, on how we should proceed with our institutional capacity building to maximize our contribution toward DRR. There are so many activities, contributions that have been implemented by my colleagues at Institut Teknologi Bandung, of course together with many stakeholders in Indonesia and also with some of you in this alliance, global alliance. Our activities are in response to our local Indonesian and Asian, ASEAN region, and of course we have to work toward Sendai framework. Looking to Indonesian hazard and disaster occurrences for the last decade, there have been so many misfortunes. 74% of our disasters related to hydrometeorology, flood, forest fire, tornado, and 26% related to geological hazards and poison hazards. So, further looking on death toll, there are too many already. Earthquake, tsunami, death in Indonesia about 56% compared to 59% globally. So it's about the same. These conditions have challenged our researchers in Indonesia. We need to get a sense of urgency to work more effectively and work more systematically. So, on top of that, Indonesia has a specific challenge. There are some variabilities of underlying conditions and design parameters, and majority of Indonesia islands, there are they say 13,000, 11,000, I don't know the exact number of the islands in our archipelago. So majority of those islands are near seismic sources. And almost 75% of basic industrial infrastructure and connectivity, including our supporting infrastructure, are built in vulnerable zones. So Indonesia is facing serious and alarming potential of earthquake tsunami disaster that this will disrupt our effort in development. And moreover, the findings from our colleagues, the researchers, through many post-disaster surveys, they found that there are relatively high levels of vulnerability associated with disaster risk. These are accumulated through past constructions with evolving and update in hazard maps and building codes. So the necessity of DRR for sustainable development for Indonesia and also our resilient communities is imminent. So with that, again, we understand the urgency about our more effective and systematic effort, especially in universities. So the national community is waiting for our more or better work. So considering all of the aforementioned conditions and challenges, we have been doing the following: undertaking the mainstreaming of DRR within our education, university education, research, and outreach program. So it is already in our daily activities. And we identify and implement research programs directed toward DRR. And we also have been promoting collaborative research toward resilient building and infrastructure and hazard mapping, contribute in enhancing building codes, standards, guidelines to prioritize public safety, as well as mitigating construction failures. We also try to promote initiatives for collaborative DRR and management plans activities with government institutions, with the industry, with professional associations, NGOs, etc. And this is something that we would like to do better. We would like to be the knowledge exchange center. I would like to elaborate on this a little bit later. So, in Indonesian context, there is high demand to enhance hazard maps, building codes, building design and construction guidelines, and it has to be updated, revised continuously. So, that's what we have been doing with our partners. So damage occurring during earthquake need to be identified, extensively studied, and further research need to be conducted, ultimately leading to development of improved building codes. Evidence from past earthquake and disaster indicate adoption and enforcement of the latest model is necessity. So we understand that it is a interdisciplinary effort. So the implementation of risk reduction activities should be integrated and linked with the effort of preventing, minimizing potential break-off in trade. ITB will strengthen our research center. There are two most relevant centers to DRR, namely the Center for Research and Disaster Mitigation, and the other is Climate Change Center. Recently, we are finalizing a master's program in disaster mitigation hosted by the Department of Earth Sciences and Geology, but of course supported by all other departments related to these issues, engineering, regional planning, etc., and also lecturers from other institutions. So we hope that we will establish strategic alliances with world-class universities such as you in this panel to improve these international education programs and develop disaster mitigation expertise through research-based education program. There are so many classic challenges, but we will discuss about it during the discussion. Maybe later Prof. Krishna Pribadi will elaborate on that. As a conclusion remark, I would like to propose this idea internally for ITD and with you all. So this issue of knowledge exchange, so the exchange, what we mean by the exchange is the give and take of people, capacities, ideas between university and its partners. This knowledge exchange will accelerate our research, our innovation, our effort, including our efforts in achieving sustainable disaster. To consider an integrated and cross-disciplinary set of academic practices, each with a means of stakeholder engagement and proactive exchange of outcomes. And internally, I promise myself and all of you, it is working very hard to systematically pushing multi-disciplinary academic activities. And we are very eager to open up to our partners in line with our goal to be the national and possibly Asian knowledge exchange center. And to complement with that, there's also another ongoing strategic program, the strengthening of research culture. So we have to emphasize on the culture, the word culture. And to our Asian colleagues, I believe that we need to play more meaningful role in fostering regional for our common prosperity and sustainability. Thank you for ITB is looking forward to working with you in our efforts to achieve sustainable disaster resilient world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rainey, for your stimulating, exciting talk. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of takers here who will be interested in strengthening their collaborations with ITB with time. But in the interest of speaking of time, I think we're going to go on now to our various panelists to present, and we're going to take turns introducing them. So I turn the floor over to you to introduce the all.
Okay, let's welcome the first panelist, Bill Ho. Bill Ho right now is working in ABPC as an director held for capacity building part. Actually, Bill and Ho, we started to know each other since 2012 during one event held in Shanghai. So since then, actually, Bill is one of my good partners in a lot of capacity building programs. I think from today's speech, Bill Ho will share his full experience of how to better enhance regional capacity building program through his experience. Bill, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wei-Shen. And so, great warm greeting to Gretchen and also other colleagues. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there in person, but I would greatly appreciate for the opportunity to present and share some of the experiences from BPC from morning. So my name is Ho. I'm the director for the Academy based in Bangkok, Thailand. And this is really my first opportunity to be here at the 60th Global Summit of GADRI. So today I have a very short presentation. My focus is really to share some of the lessons learned and some of the challenges that we have seen in terms of Asia Pacific region looking at capacity development. As some of you know, ADPC is one of the longest serving resource centers on disaster resilience, and we have been working since 1996 with various different partners, international organizations, UN agencies, local NGOs, and even local communities to enhance their capacity on disaster and climate resilience. And over those past 35 or 36 odd years, we really have actually observed some of the common challenges that really cause a very well-designed training program or well-designed training to really not sustain its impact after the training is finished. And the focus, of course, of our work is a bit more on the in-service training of relevant government officials, and of course, PR practitioners and officials from international organizations. But I think this is also very relevant to the subject that we're talking about here today, is looking at institutional capacity development, or how we can really link up basically the needs, the demand side of things to the supply in terms of the knowledge sharing, in terms of experiences, in terms of the research coming from university, coming from members of GADRI. So let me share my screen, and I hope my computer is cooperating today. I have some technical difficulties with my laptop this morning, so I wasn't able to share the screen properly. I hope it's...
Yes, Bill, we can see your screen.
Okay, then if I move to the there we go. So moving to GADRI, so basically I'm already painting a very dire picture in terms of what the challenges that we have seen so far, in terms of why some of the capacity development or capacity building initiatives have not worked, especially here in the Asia region. So I think the first thing that we have seen or observed is really looking at there's really no clear laid out purpose or objective of the capacity development initiatives or activities. So really without knowing why you're doing the training, without why you're doing the capacity development, a lot of times the design is really sort of not looking at the right approach, not looking at the right solution from the very beginning. And of course, without a clear capacity development strategy, a lot of times the things that the services or the activities we're designing is really ad hoc, and also they're not contributing to the bigger picture of the actual needs of the organization, of the institutions. And that has a lot to do with sometimes there's a misconception in terms of the capacity needs assessment versus training needs assessment. So a lot of times when we're working with different organizations and agencies, there's a big misunderstanding in terms of they mistook training needs assessment for capacity needs assessment. So a lot of times, because the input data that you're getting on the ground is really not the thing that you're trying to address, so therefore a lot of times we will have a ad hoc training rather than a sustained, comprehensive capacity development strategy. So that kind of brings to my next point, the ad hoc approach for technical training. And so there are so many different stakeholders working in the Asia region. We do see a lot of one-off very technical trainings that are being provided by different organizations to government agencies, to others, to relevant stakeholders. But a lot of times there's really no ownership. There is really no continuity of those trainings. So what you end up with is basically a one-off training, and after a few years, after training is finished, a lot of the knowledge and all of the lessons that you actually gain from those training will actually went away because of the nature of the government officials, the nature of the movement of relevant stakeholders within this kind of VRR, these circles. So that kind of brings us to the next point in terms of lack of ownership. A lot of times when we design capacity development activities, when we design training programs, we really didn't clearly define who will be the owner, who will be the person or the organization who will actually sustain these kind of trainings after a project or initiative is finished. So this is where we can really use the opportunity to have so many different research centers, so many different universities here at this venue to really looking at how we can really strengthen sort of this collaboration between academic universities with government agencies, international organizations, and regional organizations. And a lot of times we have observed, this is actually really relevant to the point I mentioned earlier, is that the organization also doesn't have a very clear defined professional development or career pathway for their officials. So a lot of times the training or the capacity development they're designing is really not mapped or correspond to the human resource design or needs. So these kind of mismatch between the human resource needs of an organization and what sort of capacity development strategy or training that you have actually developed is another sort of major sort of disadvantage or major issues that's causing a lot of those kind of capacity development initiatives to fail at the end. And because we're dealing with so many different organizations, we're dealing with so many different approaches, there is a very, very different standards among different organizations when it comes to capacity development, when it comes to training, or there is really no standards when it comes to those kind of issues. So that's also another great challenge that we're seeing when it comes to sort of in-service capacity development when we're looking at disaster resilient field in this region. And of course, very importantly, is the lack of support from senior management. So a lot of times, with capacity development, it is not viewed as a top priority by a lot of policymakers or decision makers. So that usually comes in the secondary. A lot of time their focus is really looking at getting the latest technical support, getting the latest technology, but they have to also think about how you are going to sustain, how you're going to maintain those technology after a project or initiative is finished. So again, this is where a great entry point that we might be able to see the potential for universities, for research institutes from the region to really come in and to support and to address these kind of challenges. So of course, things aren't working. Things are not really a very black or dark pictures. So what really has worked in terms of what we have seen when it comes to research training from the region. So what we have seen has worked is really you start the process properly. You really start with an organizational capacity development assessment, and the result of that assessment will feed into your institution capacity development strategy. And we have seen a lot of those sort of instances where, for example, in Indonesia, for example, in Thailand, for example, in Myanmar, where the government training center or government capacity development center or disaster risk reduction were developed using these kind of methodologies. So they have a very clear roadmap in terms of how they want to really design the capacity development strategy, not only for the relevant government agencies, but also a lot of times they can actually take a bigger picture, also looking at the national sort of strategy of disaster risk reduction to see how the sort of national training center, national capacity development center can really play a role in enhancing the implementation of those national strategies as well. So of course I mentioned the examples of Thailand, of Indonesia, and of course Myanmar. This is where then they have a dedicated disaster reduction training center, usually at the national level, that is really catering to the capacity development needs of the government agencies. And this is really, following on the first point, this is really designed in such a way that after understanding the organizational capacity development needs, and then they can really have an institutional capacity development strategy. And this is where the national training center in those countries are working really well, not only to support the national disaster management organization, but also they have the capacity to support other line ministries and agencies as well. And I think I'm using Indonesia as an example. There is a very clear, defined, required skill set and training that is needed for promotion or transfer of government officials. So this is really have a very clear understanding in terms of what is our required skill sets, what are required training that each official needs to have, needs to undertake before they can move on to different positions. And this is really a drastic issue where you have a frequent turnover of the government officials, and this is where then you can really have a plan that is actually set in place, not only looking at very specific technical skill sets, but also the overall organizational needs that is building upon those kinds of skill sets as well. And of course, where we have seen a lot of great success is collaboration with universities, collaboration with academia to really have a pool of qualified trainers at the national level where they can really support the overall institutional capacity development needs of the various government agencies and line ministries of their countries. And I think another great example is where Indonesia and Thailand, they are very actively working with universities, with research institutes to really supplement what existing sort of training capacity or capability from the government side with that from the university side of things as well. So in terms of from the APC perspective, how we see sort of the overall capacity development drive and need, and this is where we see that a lot of times, I mentioned earlier, people were actually mistaking the training needs assessment with the capacity needs assessment. The actual training needs assessment is really the inner part of the overall program capacity development. But what we really want to get into is at the institutional development at the end. That is the bigger picture, that is the broader goal that we want to achieve with the very different steps within that process. And of course, in this kind of scenarios, we always want to keep in mind the sustainability issue, the gender and inclusion issues, and of course the participation. And then in the bigger picture,
Bill, about 1 minute.
Sure, this is my last slide. About the bigger picture, this is how we really see capacity development intervention. They really have to work hand in hand with the relevant resources. They really have to really look at what is your development goal and how you want to do your engine of change. So this is my last slide. It's a great pleasure to be able to share some of the experiences from our side and looking forward to the discussion later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. We will take the Q&A session to the last. So we will have Professor Desmond to introduce next panelists.
Thank you very much. I now have the honor to introduce Professor Godfrey Nkwada. Professor Godfrey Nkwada is a professor in environmental geography at University of Free State, South Africa. He has a very long period of teaching, 30 years. He is a National Research Foundation rated researcher. He is currently involved in multidisciplinary climate research with special focus on environmental impacts of climate change, mitigation and resilience, and related social ecological systems. He most recently accomplished contribution on mountain climate change research involved in the establishment of wireless sensor network of automatic weather stations in Maloti, Pakistan mountains. He is a founding coordinator of Afro-Montana Research Unit and the current coordinator of University Staff Doctorate Program. Professor Nkwada, over to you.
Full screen.
Full screen, Professor.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Can you see my screen from there?
Yes, you can see, but go play now. That's fine. You can see.
First of all, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this panel. My presentation is going to be short. It is going to focus on African. There are three things that I'm going to relate to. Firstly, the context, and then what is related to Africa, and thirdly, to start from. I've decided to call this presentation Infrastructure for Disaster Risk Reduction, because Africa is looking behind in terms of infrastructure. Context. Africa is developed by several natural hazards. And it brings hazards that relate to climate change, including cyclones, tornadoes, hailstorms, dust storms, and winds. And currently we are experiencing problems with the cyclone frame. It is gliding over Malawi movement. There has been lots of life and lots of property as well. Africa is also been developed by groups, Ebola, recently because COVID-19, because it was a hard time, cholera, malaria, and other diseases as well. Pest outbreaks, including workers fully ahead and in that time alone were affected by geographic problems associated with tectonic shifts, eruption of volcanoes, and earthquakes. We have problems associated with growing condition. All these happenings, floods, migration, and other problems as well. But as I address you for it, I pray for the fact that there are precautions that are already disadjusted. Some of them are strategy for the use of information across national, regional, and international scales for disaster risk reduction. And then also the semi-framework on which I am going to allude to three subsections of section 24, starting with subsection A, which calls for the production, promotion of collection, analysis, management, and use of relevant data, and practical information ensuring its dissemination, taking into account the needs for different categories of users is appropriate. And secondly, subsection C, which calls for the developing, creating, taking, and dissemination of appropriate and location-based disaster risk information, including risk maps to decision makers, the general public and communities at risk, disaster inappropriate format by using appropriate and applicable geospatial information technology. And lastly, subsection F, which calls for the input commitment to real-time access to reliable data, the use of space and in-situ information, including geographic information system, and the use of information and communication technology, innovation, and monitoring tools, and the collection, analysis, and dissemination of data. Africa. Now, where does Africa move? I shall say that Africa requires proper data infrastructure. We have to salute the fact that geospatial data infrastructure. And this kind of infrastructure, a definition is the framework of policies, institutional arrangements, technologies, as well as the people themselves and the data themselves. As you can see on the second bullet, the first two are in green. These are available in Africa. These are already in place. When we have problems with policy frameworks and institutional arrangements, look, it's amazing, is right? The data, the people that are using vast stream of data that are available for this making purposes. And we know people try to assist when other countries, when other part of the world, without information and without data, there's no way they can assist us. And so the need for a start of data infrastructure. And I'm going to allude to three things here. The technology, the data, and the people. And wherever we have to start from. Let us start with technology. It is the computing power, the capability of improving the network infrastructure, and the relevant types of software. We would like to understand what is happening where and how it is happening, and we find information and we find data. There's no way that can be done. And secondly, very regardless of everything that are necessary and that are required. The first one is the efficient data collection applications to produce geospatial data including layers and shapelines for different applications and capabilities, including demographic, social, physical, economic, and other type of data. In particular, what we are looking for as machine learning technologies and technological application or options, including learning sensor networks to gather the data, administrative data, and other aspects of data that promote telemetry. This is what is related in Africa. And secondly, producing data production. The kind of thing that will make it possible to produce models to predict, to forecast and simulate reality. So that we understand what is happening. When there is what effect, when there is that disturbance in food production system as a result of an event or local outbreaks, we need to simulate a reality to understand will be affected and whether it is going to happen. Time that also is working, which is a second aspect. Time that also effective monitoring of the environment and development of animal systems. So that is related to that.
2 more minutes.
The second aspect, which is data.
Hello?
The last thing,
hello, Prof.
What I'm going to refer to here, and people themselves will can effectively develop and enable the sharing and efficient use of information for public purposes.
Hello, Professor. 1 minute left. 1 minute.
Thank you. And we are going to start with a pilot case so that we see how this can work for Africa.
Seems disconnect.
Look like disconnect.
Disconnect.
Disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay. So we move to the next one. So since it's an internet issue, so we will move to the next speaker.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Over to you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Let's welcome the next speaker, Dimitar. Dimitar is professor of Information Communication Technology Department of the University of National and World Economic Forum, Bulgaria. His topic today is about capacity building for disaster risk reduction by using artificial intelligence. Actually, Professor Dimitar is a kind of very pioneer professor in Bulgaria trying to use ICT for disaster risk reduction. Dimitar, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lee. And welcome to all participants. Unfortunately, this year we couldn't make it to arrive in Kyoto, so let's hope the future is for us. Now in Sofia it's 9 o'clock 15 minutes, and it's more than a billion start of the day with you all. So let me first share my screen.
Yes, we see your screen, Professor.
Yes. Thank you very much. So, Bulgaria is situated in the Balkan Peninsula, which is the southeastern part of Europe, and all of our neighbors constantly experience disasters. Primarily, it is earthquakes. It is Turkey, it is Greece, it's Romania, and somehow we are in the middle of this region. Of course, there are many people who work on the problems of disaster risk reduction, but coming from my background, information technology, we established a Science Research Center for Disaster Risk Reduction about 8 or 9 years ago, and our main goal is to build a capacity for using information technology in disaster risk reduction. Probably many of you know or have seen this figure, the different circles of artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial intelligence first appeared as a scientific term 66 years ago, and from that time now, it constantly develops, and you see different subsets of artificial intelligence, like machine learning, like deep learning, and so on. So, what is the use of that artificial intelligence for disaster risk reduction? There was a famous book by one of the greatest IT specialists, Nicholas Crick, written in '76, which book was called Algorithms plus Data Structures are equal to programs. I would say that in a way, and the story repeats, but with the help of artificial intelligence. Why? During disasters, a lot of data is generated. You can see one of the main IT technologies that are used to gather data. Internet of Things, many sensors which can gather data from different sources. Edge computing is a form of program doing calculations locally when the event appears. Remote sensing is a popular method for gathering different data, usually from observations. Social media. Who of us does not use social media, especially in the time of disasters, where a lot of data is generated? Text data, video data, voice messages, and so on. And this data nowadays comes to a large volumes, and those volumes can be processed by the so-called big data. And then comes cloud computing, which is a popular already way to store data from different sources. And when we have all this data, large volumes, enormous volumes of data, nowadays the data is measured already in petabytes, which is a quite big number. And what we should do with this data? Artificial intelligence can be described in different ways. The most popular one is that it's a computer program that tries to simulate the human behavior and decision making, but I would say in more simple way. Computers in using artificial data are such that use special algorithms and data to give results, to show patterns of behavior, and so on. So, what is the role of artificial intelligence in disaster risk reduction? You see most popular uses of artificial intelligence. As you know, machine and deep learning are subsets of artificial intelligence, and then they can be used for different ways of processing the data. Artificial neural networks, which simulate how the human brain behaves. Different learning algorithms. I forgot to mention that artificial intelligence needs the program or the algorithm to be trained in order when new data is given, the set algorithm to produce a certain decision or to give advices. Predictive modeling, image and video analysis, optimization algorithm, early warning system, decision support system, risk assessment, post-disaster analysis, robotics. You see, so many areas of technology which use artificial intelligence in disaster risk reduction. Nowadays, artificial intelligence is somehow marked as a hype. Hype means a word or event of technology from which is expected too much. But you can see many things that limit this artificial intelligence nowadays. Since we speak about data, we should be worried about data quality and quantity. It's a very large area for research, and so it is particular interest to train our artificial intelligence algorithm to work even in the absence of full data in the uncertainties. Privacy and security. You know, when we communicate on social networks, even in the case of natural disasters, certain information can leak over the channel and go into the wrong hands. Computational resources. Usually, artificial intelligence needs powerful computing devices. So in such case, we should think about building dedicated centers for processing the data that comes from those disasters with the help of artificial intelligence. Integration with existing systems. Another hot point, which means that we should not obliterate our own resources, computational resources, but try to find a way to connect with them. Real-time performance. We need data and its processing in real time. So sometimes AI is limited in this regard. Limited adaptability. You understand what I'm talking about. Not always the artificial intelligence algorithm can be immediately adapted to existing problems rising from a certain disaster. Algorithm specificity. Although, according to literature resources, each day about 1,000 new AI algorithms are generated worldwide, there are still insufficiency in the area of artificial intelligence.
Let's limit it about last 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'll make it. Okay, I will not go over all of the rest, but since we speak about building capacity, nowadays the capacity is in the hands of the developers. Although artificial intelligence comprises many fields of science, I will point the four most interesting from my ICT point of view. To develop algorithms for artificial intelligence, especially in disaster risk reduction, we need at least 4 kinds of professionals. First is mathematicians. Second one is data scientists. Third one is specialist in statistics. And last come the program developers. But since we speak about a special field of application of artificial intelligence, I would certainly measure specialists in disaster risk reduction. So the capacity to build a capacity for application of artificial intelligence in disaster risk reduction will need an interdisciplinary team of highly educated and high trained professionals. So at least from my point of view, in my country, we are small in population and we don't have all those people, so I'm looking for possible cooperation with the friends, colleagues, and professionals all over the world. So if you're interested to develop these teams, please connect with me. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor. Also see you in person in GADRI. So we will have next speaker.
Great. We have two more panelists, and I hope we'll be able to leave some time for discussion. The next panelist is Ailsa Holloway. Ailsa has a fascinating and multifaceted professional background. Ailsa, are you there?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Oh, yes, you are there. You've shown up. Good to see you. Anyway, her background spans the areas of health and humanitarian activities and disaster risk reduction, working in a variety of agencies and a variety of universities. Right now, she's going to talk to us about the example of this fascinating multi-institutional entity called PeriPeriU. As you can see, she currently works at Auckland University of Technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for inviting me to participate. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. So I'm going to speak a little bit about PeriPeriU as a collaborative partnership that fast-tracked institutional capacity in the disaster risk domain, primarily during the early 2000s and right up until now, in a time of institutional uncertainty. Peri-peri, if any of you have been to Africa, is actually a spice. And but while it's used in many different countries and has different kinds of names, everybody engages with it in some way. So it stands for Partners Enhancing Resilience of People Exposed to Risks. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what it is, how did it originate, and what does it achieve. So PeriPeriU is a collaboration of African higher education institutions that evolved from the early 2000s to fast-track what we'd say disaster risk scholarship across Africa. And I have to be very honest in saying that prior to this, disaster risk capacity development in Africa never profiled institutions of higher education, except for training or quite specific hazard sciences. To the extent of, I recall doing a sweep of publications in a very prominent disasters journal over a sweep of about 10 years, and only found something like 2 articles that had been actually published and written by an African academic. So the imperative for change, and that prompted PeriPeriU, you have to go back about 20 to 25 years to think about it. This imperative for change was really situated in a clear commitment to a social compact, one that visualized Africa's higher education institutions as offering new academic programs, new curricula that were fit for purpose for Africa's risk development challenges. And this was instead of a persisting dependence on external technical humanitarian expertise. In this regard, the impetus for change, and it came from within African institutions of higher learning, was simultaneously scholarly, recognizing that they needed to step up to the plate, and socially responsive, also understanding that there was a crucial social need. And so over the course of 10 or 15 years, this partnership fast-tracked a university architecture for disaster risk capacity building in Africa. And I'm very mindful of the comments made earlier about training. One of the reasons the university architecture was so important is because it institutionally embedded appropriate kinds of curricula that were contextually relevant for different countries. There was a very clear understanding that there was no one-size-fits-all, and after all, one of the real challenges in introducing this field is that it is simultaneously involved in every field and discipline, but is never nested within one exclusively. And one of the obstacles is, so what discipline does it fit in? Well, all, in a way. And so the model that unfolded meant that in some institutions the curricula were nested within a discipline or a disciplinary area like engineering, and in others they were conceptualized as a cross-disciplinary field, and sometimes in institutions that were just starting to embrace the idea, they started off as one module in a postgraduate program that then extended 2 modules to 3 or 4, and then a full-on postgraduate program. After around 10 years, plus or minus, the collaboration had extended to around 12 universities, between 150 and 200 staff, and operated actually across 8 different languages. Over that period, something like 28 disaster risk-related academic programs and modules had been launched, with, and then by 2017, probably reaching around 1,000 students from, as we say, from Algiers to Antananarivo. So this was a remarkable accomplishment, and you'll see on the right the map with the institutions, the geographic locations. So one of the reasons this took off or it worked was through an inventive capacity development model that was focused specifically on the disaster risk context of application. So I have a little animation here. Got GADRI comprised 5 distinct but interlinked dimensions. Academic programs that could be within disciplines or cross-disciplines in relation to the disaster risk domain, very much situated in the context of application through short course training for practitioners, integrated disaster risk research that was contextually relevant, for instance on informal settlement fires, which in Africa are quite prominent. Explicit commitment to community outreach, once again embedding the collaboration in the applied space, generating that demand that we've been talking about, and strategic engagement with policymakers, with your department of, or your national disaster management centers, and other related ministries, as well as the international community. It's very important in Africa. And you'll see that this could be nested very elegantly and logically within the 4 priorities of the Sendai framework: enhancing disaster preparedness and building back better, investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience, strengthening disaster risk governance, and in understanding disaster risk. When you get all of these working together, and each partner was obliged to do this, there is a cumulative effect that works across the system, and the system includes both the institution of higher learning and how it articulates with its external stakeholders. So one of the reasons the partnership was so successful, or has been so successful, is that it provided a sounding board and a force for mobilization through these unclear processes of how do you introduce these types of teaching and learning and research programs. It meant navigating internal and external uncertainty in a very complex risk environment. So 20 years ago, there was little precedent for African HEIs to work with the disaster and humanitarian fields. In fact, I would have to say there was a complete disconnect. They didn't even speak to one another, and I've had colleagues in the international community say, we don't really know how to start to engage with an institution of higher learning. Do we write to the Vice Chancellor? Do we talk to a friend? We don't even know how to start. And one of the strengths of the collaboration was that it helped to navigate around the internal institutional structures that needed to change. They needed to change to make provision for collaborating agreements with external agencies, for instance, the UN system that was particularly active in the disaster risk domain. But internally, it also required adjustments in terms of the cross-disciplinary disaster risk curricula that needed to be conceptualized. So transboundary academic partnerships like this offer real strengths and resources and collective and collegial problem solving. And building these capacities both internally to work in a cross-disciplinary space and externally to work with a diversity of stakeholders really strengthens institutional agility for institutions of higher learning and provides a connection to the external environment, to society, underscoring the very important role that this sector plays in the broader disaster risk domain. You know, remember that I said that when we first started,
you should probably stop in 1 or 2 minutes.
And this is my second to last slide. When we launched this, or thinking about it, we saw very few publications in the peer-reviewed literature. Just this year, in fact, just a couple of months ago, Puri Puri U, through its collaborative network, launched a call for research proposals for early career researchers and Tier 2 for higher education collaboration research awards. We've gone from 0 publications to now launching continent-wide calls for research. There's a lot further to go, but it is indeed a start. So today, disaster risk scholarship flourishes in Africa, and if you're interested, please check out these links. The first one is to the Puri Puri U site, and then if you're really interested in some incisive ideas about the strengths and the drawbacks of this collaboration and introducing similar kinds of processes, please, you can find the Phase 3 and Phase 4 Puri Puri U evaluation reports, which were really important for decision making on the lists on the last slide or from the site itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elsa. I mean, I'm sure that many of the people in this audience are going to want to learn more about Puri Puri U, because though the word unique is often overused, it is really a unique transboundary higher education collaboration with many practical results. So I hope we'll get some questions. Thank you very, very much. So our last presenter also comes from IPB, and he's replacing Rector Rainey, who was not able to stay on to join the panel discussion. His name is Professor Krishna Suryanto Tribadi, and Dr. Krishna has a very extensive history of involvement with disaster risk reduction research, and he both in universities and leadership roles throughout Indonesia. He's also a prof at ITB. Amazingly, I think he's brought together a coalition of more than 100 research institutes in Indonesia that focus together on disaster-related research. So, Professor Krishna, please take it away.
Thank you, Grace. Yeah, actually I don't prepare anything for this discussion because Professor Rennie just asked me to be involved in the discussion, questions and answers. But anyway, I just will talk 1 minute on our experience, which is I think much related to what Professor Elsa Holloway has done in Africa. Long time ago, in 1998, in Indonesia, we established what we call the University Forum for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is actually modeled after the Asian University Environment and Disaster Management Network in EDM that IPD was also one of the founders together with Kyoto University with Professor Rajib Shah. And then this University for Disaster Risk Reductions was developing very, very slowly, but it is considered and respected by the disaster management agencies in Indonesia. So at the beginning of the global platform, Indonesia was to develop or to establish its national platform for disaster risk reductions, and our university forum was asked to motivate other stakeholders and to collaborate with other stakeholders to work on the national platform for disaster risk reductions. It was, I said, sometimes in 2013, I'm sorry, the forum was established in 2008, actually. Yeah, and we were a very small number of universities. In the beginning, maybe less than 10 universities, and passing through years, now our members have evolved to almost 100 universities. We are conducting annual university meetings, discussing strategic issues and disaster risk reductions in Indonesia. And we produce also guidelines for universities on how to develop master programs in disaster risk reduction and disaster management, and also guidelines in particular for what we call student engagement, student outreach in the villages with a disaster risk reduction thematic kind of guidelines for students who are interested to work on the our field and implement directly in the villages. And those are considered as course in itself between 2 and 4 credit semester, valued as credit semester, 2 to 4 credit semester, and it worked quite interestingly. So I think what we are lacking still after looking what Dr. Elsa Lobe has done with 2020 is more extensive collaborations between different universities. And this is actually, we have the challenges of the, still the culture of competition is still there, so collaboration becomes difficult. And also the limitations in the resources that we can mobilize for the collaborations. The university forum also has received some support actually from USA through Mexico International, and working with Mexico International in developing pool of experts, pool of trainers all over the country. It is part of the program which is called the training assistance for the disaster management agencies at the local level. Okay. So we work with them, and we also focus on developing and working with local universities and to bring them together on the platform. So this is our experience. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's a very exciting set of experiences that you've had, and I'm sure we can share more information about it later. I'm turning the floor over to our chair, Mr. Wei-Sun, to guide questions. I can only say one thing. Please ask questions.
Okay, thanks for the keynote speaker and other 5 panelists to share their experience and observation. I think capacity building is the process of the supply chain of technology, knowledge, and experience. So in the following, I would like to invite all participants from the floor to ask questions to our panelists. Please raise your hand and introduce yourself. And you can identify any speaker to explain, or you can ask all panelists to reply to the same question. So any question or comment from the floor? Because we want to reserve more time for our other 5 participants. Any questions? Well, so silent.
What?
Because we'll wait.
What? This is not possible. There have to be some questions or comments.
Questions or comments?
So since there is no question, I want to start.
May I speak?
Can we get the question first?
Yes. May I have a question?
Yeah, we have a comment.
We have a question coming.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Yes, thank you. I am Shubho Samadar from DPRI, Kyoto University. Thanks for your great presentations. My question in general to all of you, that what I found as a researcher is that capacity building is very much engineering-driven, technology-driven capacity development, skill upgradations. But when it comes to the participation in capacity building, mixed communication questions, it's not only about technical development and skill upgradations. So particularly in South Africa, it seems that they have gone through this kind of issues along with the capacity or skill development. So I would like to hear about this perspective from any panelists, particularly from South Africa, that how do they deal with this kind of hierarchy of knowledge and the ownership of the knowledge and capacity development. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will have the panelists from Africa first to respond to the questions.
Well, thank you for your question. Your question is not an easy one. But I can say boosting that capacity building is not necessarily
So, or
ask Elsa.
Elsa, do you have any comments now? Yes, please. You had more in-depth observation for use.
I'm now based in Auckland, so please understand that my comments are will be a couple of years, I say out of date, but I am now based in Auckland. It would be presumptuous for me to say that my view.
Those are the technical breaches that the people are done. Those are technical breaches that we face in Africa. Currently in the Africa, we have a improvement in schedule. And it will use our life recognition. But what I was saying, it works just one for a little several friends that we are living behind. And the time is becoming really we are hit by the disaster. I mean, we need to repair. So we are putting that in capacity. But for what we do, for issue probably arise, that investing preventing flood, information and data through the level something that's problem that people are already using access to. That is what we need. Very other things were trying to is what we need to achieve. And going to find the person running. But still, it's not so much about when the thing that I thought the first in the end of the future ahead of us. It is a lack of technology, a lack of data organization, and
Professor, because time is limited, can I pass to Alyssa again? Later complete his statement. Her statement. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm sure there will be other questions, so let me go very quickly. I think that the impetus for capacity building in Africa, again some years back, was very much geared by a recognition that there were limited human resources. In Southern Africa, it was amplified by a really interesting event as we, I guess, reflect on COVID-19, and that was the confluence, essentially, of conflict and the takeoff of the HIV epidemic, as well as drought. And because of the loss of life and illness, due to that kind of combination of forces, there was a real recognition by higher education institutions. I think this is particularly the case in a resource-constrained environment, that your social obligation steps into addressing a pressing human need, and that required some rethinking. The idea was to start a process of stepping into the space that the human resources, that the workforce responding to this complex mix of risks would at least start to be qualified in some countries, even at degree level, let alone postgraduate level, so that we could start to build an architecture that would not be perfect, but you must start somewhere. And I think that was a unifying objective that held partners together. It was a cooperative approach. It was not competitive at all, and we were very, very fortunate, like our colleagues from ITB, to have support from USAID's Office for Disaster Assistance, often. So it made a huge difference. And competition didn't arise. There's two other tricks here. The first is not to build a consortium around one primary discipline or field. We were very clear about that. So you have health, you would have urban planning, you might have engineering, you might have environmental science, you might have food security. Spread it across multiple fields, so everybody can learn from everybody else and not be in a competitive mode. One other, I think, really important development was to engage with policymakers and, in some instances, even force changes in law, in national law, to ensure that the national legislation made explicit mention of the engagement of higher education institutions as key role players in the collaborative decision-making processes for disaster management.
Okay,
that kind of statement really helped.
Okay,
I realized that I cut off Professor Krishna. He was about to make a comment or a question, and we took your question.
Yep.
Could we perhaps get your comment or question now, Professor Krishna?
Actually, no, because Professor Holloway just now said something that enlightening, quite enlightening for me. So the question was already answered by Professor Holloway. Anyway, I would like to say something to respond to Professor Samandar's questions. Professor Samandar is my long-time friend at GPRI. Yeah. So what our experience in Indonesia with the University Forum to promote capacity building of the local universities in remote areas in Indonesia. First, we try to raise their awareness and interest regarding their research. So we discuss with them what is the need for local research, for example, and to promote them to do their own research locally. Second is the University Forum also developed a guideline to establish research centers in their universities. And the third one is we help them promote collaborations between local universities and local government on DRR issues. So we kind of matchmaking between local universities and local governments. This is what we have been doing in the past, and it seems it was quite useful in bringing up the local universities to become supporter or contributor to the local DRR. Thank you.
Thank you. So any short comment from the other speaker, like Bill, like Demeters, about these questions? No. So any last question from the floor? Please.
Okay, Indrajit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is a very fascinating discussion and a lot of presentation across the globe. So in the morning also we heard about there are a lot of things to be done on the capacity development, and also we are working all like academic institution, practitioners and UN agency all are working in silos. So from the panel, do we have any idea like how we can actually mainstream the education? We are talking about the mainstreaming of the DRR in the development process. So I'm raising this point like mainstreaming of the education in the development process. So how we can mainstream this academic institutions research to the development process?
Okay. Any comment? If you don't have any comment about this one, about mainstream, the development of capacity?
Well, first, I believe each university institution is great by its own achievement, but we should actively communicate between ourselves. So it could be seminars, it could be workshops and conferences where we can additionally develop our ideas and exchange new ones. So I think this is the way.
Okay, thank you, Demeter. So any additional idea from Bill?
Sure, sorry. I think that's a very interesting question. I think how the academy can also really work more closely with the government agency. I think there's definitely a push to establish the National Disaster Risk Reduction Platform. And this is, I think, a great entry point for a lot of academic institutions if they can understand how to be involved in that process. I think we definitely learn from the ITB, the University Forum, for example, from Indonesia. I think there's a similar push here in Thailand as well. They're also trying to form a network of public university here on disaster resilience. So this could be something that we can seriously looking at in terms of kind of mainstreaming some of the research into the development process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So any last very urgent question on the floor? Since no, first of all, let's give the big hand to the 5 online panelists for their time and contribution to this session. So about 1 minute left. To respect our female co-chair here, I would like to give the floor to Professor Gronger, give very short closing remarks.
Well, anyway, I've really enjoyed this session. I wish we had more time. I'm personally very committed to the idea that our higher education institutions can do a much, much better job if we adopt more creative, innovative approaches, not only within our institutions, but in terms of our collaborations with society, with each other, and across national boundaries. So let's work together in the future. Thank you very much for coming to this session. We know we had very stiff competition from other exciting sessions.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Can you share, can I have a request to the panelists?
Oh, dear panelists, can you share your slide with
can you please
secretary?
share your slides with Wilma?
Yes.
Can you send email, then I will collect it from her, because we need to summarize the discussions of this session. Thank you.
Because of the valuable input to us.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you again. So I know 5:30 is our reception, right? Over there. So see you later. Thank you.